that car accident, I didn't go to the hospital right away because
What?
I told myself I was fine.
What?
That we had 4 people in the car in front of us, and the one gentleman was very hurt. And then Dan had the stroke, and I knew that was a priority. Honestly, I thought I was fine. Adrenaline was pumping. I didn't even know I had a black eye at that moment.
Welcome to Holy Wreckage, where we stop pretending, start telling the truth, and make room for healing out loud. This podcast is about the wreckage life leaves behind and the redemption that God can bring from it. Every episode is filled with raw stories, honest faith, and real conversations that remind you that you're not alone, not too far gone, and it's not beyond restoration. Subscribe, like, and follow Holy Wreckage so you don't miss an episode. I am here today with Amanda Maddox. We've been working together for the last couple of years, and I've had the blessing of hearing her story, and I am sure that it's going to bless you too. She has suffered from a traumatic brain injury that the Lord has walked her through, and so she's going to share today about it. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself, Amanda.
So I was born and raised in West Virginia.
Me too.
Really?
Well, I wasn't raised, but I lived there twice for like a year each time.
It's such a beautiful state. It really is.
Yeah.
So I was born and raised in a place called Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. So very much Hallmark little town, but I lived in between Harpers Ferry and Shepherdstown. So our whole area was very small, very knit, very royal. It was a very cool place to grow up. My story, my testimony that Crystal's asking me to talk about has me on a journey of identity most of my life. Almost my entire life, it was up for question. Who am I? What am I supposed to do? Where am I not measuring up? I was raised with a family of 4 kids, and it was always that one kid, at least that's how I felt growing up, that couldn't measure up. I was always compared. Why can't you be smarter? Why can't you be thinner? Why can't? It was always a measure from childhood. I was compared to not only my sister, but to other people. Growing up, I think I adapted a personality of being a fixer or a pleaser my whole life. So I started to try to be who everybody wanted me to be. I tried to be good enough, tried to be who people thought I should be. And that led me down my own journey of not knowing who I was. And then, like every other person, I've had my troubles, but I dropped out of school at 16. So I was a high school dropout. I met my husband young. We were high school sweethearts. We got pregnant at 17. So I had my first kid a month before I turned 18. And then we got married, and my identity kind of surrounded my motherhood, like being a wife and being a mother, but still not knowing who I was. The world has such a way of comparing each other. We are in a world where society tells us we should look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way. And I feel like we're all on this track of trying to be something that other people are measuring us to, but we truly don't know who we're supposed to be in the end.
And that was before the internet.
That was before that was before social media.
Right. I wouldn't say before internet, but yeah, before social media.
I heard recently, we are the last generation that will know what it's like to grow up without social media.
Yeah.
And that type of
it was a different life.
It was. But even then, we still had a lot of comparisons.
Oh, yeah.
So it never, high school never goes away.
Right.
Junior high school never goes away.
Yeah.
Those comparisons are always there, but then you have your family on top of it and stuff like that. So growing up, I had a lot of stigma. I had a lot of, oh, she's a high school dropout. She's a teenage mom. If you could put a title to it, I had it on me. I was dyslexic. I couldn't read very well. I had so many stigmatisms growing up. I had Elizabeth when I was 17. I had Maddie when I was 19. I had Matt when I was 21. So we had 3 kids back to back on purpose because I wanted them close. Even though we were young, I wanted my kids close. After I had Matt, I went to EMT school. I went and got my EMT degree. I grew up in a fire department, rural area. My father was a volunteer firefighter, paid firefighter, paramedic. So I went to the fire department all the time with him. Loved it. Went into EMT for about 6 years. Um, and like any young couple, we were struggling with finances, and a coworker had talked me into going to paramedic school. I thought, okay, I'll give everything I have for 2 years. I'll get 2 years under my belt and get paramedics will be financially easier.
So what's the difference between an EMT and a paramedic?
So an EMT is basic life saving. So think about first aid glorified.
Okay.
Okay. We can give some meds. We can do some intubations, some things. Paramedic is way more. We have the ability to read cardiac monitors. We can intubate in specific ways. We can even do tracheotomies out in the field if we need to. It's like a field doctor. We have a protocol for medication, but we don't have to, unlike a nurse, we don't have to go to the doctor and say, hey, can I give this? We actually have a step protocol of, if this is what you're dealing with, this is what you're allowed to do. Anything past this, you have to radio in to the doctors. For those 2 years, I was working as an EMT. I was going to school for the paramedics, and then I was running practicals where you had to go get on the ambulance or go to the ER or the different areas and learn and work hands-on. I was dropping my kids off early in the morning. Didn't see them all day, came home late at night, but I was like, it's going to be 2 years, just 2 years of sacrifice. So when I was going through paramedic school, we were given everything we had. I was dropping the kids off early. I was going to school or going to work or doing practicals, coming home late at night. When I look back, I hate that I lost those 2 years with the kids, but I really thought that, okay, this is what's going to make us or break us.
Right. We have to sacrifice to have something greater.
Yeah. I almost sacrificed my marriage in that time. My husband and I were at like ends some days because we were trying to balance the life of married, parents, finances, the time we spent because I wasn't there. I was gone doing work or practicals or whatever. So I remember my last semester, we were on the breaking point. I wasn't quite sure which way we were going to go. And then I graduated that June, and I thought, okay, it's going to get better. It's going to get better because I'm going to get a different job. I'll work 3 on, have 4 off. It'll be fine. So a few weeks after I graduated, I was coming back from a training with an older coworker. He had a mild stroke when he was driving, and in those moments, he literally gripped the steering wheel and hit the gas completely down, and we were going to hit this car in front of us. I knew we were going to hit this car in front of us. I reached over. He had a car with an open front in it, and I reached my leg over his leg to try to hit the brake. And in hitting the brake, we still hit that car. We hit it so hard. I had my seatbelt on, but because I was stretched out to hit the brake, I ended up hitting the windshield. And my left eye took out the rear view mirror, and then we got flung back, but because his foot was still on the gas, we hit it hard again. And this time I like started. It's where you have impact and the windshield goes in different directions, creating a star. I was knocked unconscious for a little bit, but then when I came to, I was in emergency mode. My training kicked in. All I could think is there's people that were hurt. And I remember having to turn my body and using my feet to press the door open because the metal had been crushed back. I couldn't get the door open otherwise. And I got out, and I remember being kind of out of it, but there were people bleeding and hurt. And I was like, okay, go into paramedic mode. Plus, I needed to help Dan, who was still having his stroke or coming out of his stroke. And he was highly confused and not sure what was happening. That car accident, I didn't go to the hospital right away because
What?
I told myself I was fine.
What?
That we had 4 people in the car in front of us, and the one gentleman was very hurt. And then Dan had the stroke, and I knew that was a priority. Honestly, I thought I was fine. Adrenaline was pumping. I didn't even know I had a black eye at that moment. I didn't know what I looked like. I remember 2 ambulances showed up, and there was 6 of us. So, and it's a rural area. You don't have a lot of, you don't have a lot of 911s around. Like, these are volunteers. These are, what you got is what you get. So in my head, I was prioritizing, and I prioritized them. So they took off on the ambulance, and the firefighters were still there, and I'd called my parents to come pick me up. And I remember sitting back by that back tire and just sitting there, like, pulled my knees up and put my head down my knees, and just like, wow, it's a lot. My parents got there. My dad, again, firefighter, paramedic, he's like, yeah, I think you need to go to the hospital. I'm like, I don't want to go. We were just over the line in Virginia at the time. I didn't want to go to just a random hospital I didn't know. So I'm like, let's just go home. I'll get my husband, I'll get Byington to take me to the hospital and get seen there locally. I knew the hospital. I knew the doctors. I knew the nurses. I ran that area. I knew them. I trusted them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I went back, and it was funny because it wasn't even until I was in the hospital that I realized my legs were cut up. My eye was black and blue. Like, when adrenaline starts coming down, you start to go, oh, like you're in survival mode with the fight or flight until that moment where you start to come down and you crash.
Yeah.
The next few days, I pushed it off. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Like, I did this for weeks, and I had headaches. I had nausea. I had all the signs of the concussion. I knew I had a concussion, but I mean, it wasn't bad enough they didn't keep me. So in my mind, it's okay. And I knew what a concussion was. I mean, I learned it in school, but they don't teach it like they should. They don't go into detail about what a concussion is and how it works. So we're taught Kukan syndrome in emergency medicine. Not a lot of people even hear it or talk about it.
Kukan?
Yeah. If you
look, an acronym?
Yeah, it's an acronym for it. But think about it this way. It's when your skull is nice and smooth on the outside, right? If you took your skin off, your bones are pretty smooth. But when you go inside the skull, there's actually all these little sharp little nodes and little points on the inside of your skull. You wouldn't believe it, but there is. But our brain's covered in something called duramatter. Okay, so it protects it, or it's supposed to. So what Kukan syndrome means is when somebody is in a car accident or a force, the brain goes forward and then it comes back. So you can get bruised on both sides. And so you can get a mild concussion on both sides versus wherever it hit, right? So I had multiple areas of a concussion where I'd hit because I had bounced and hit a couple times. And over the next few weeks, my symptoms really got strong, and I really started to go, okay, I have a problem. This isn't working. There were times where I didn't recognize, I'd wake up in bed and not recognize my husband sitting next to me.
Wow.
I wouldn't recognize my dad.
Like amnesia type thing?
No, it was strange. It was as if you're sitting here beside me, but I'm seeing a whole different woman. Like, it's not you, but I know you. I know what you look like, but my brain is seeing someone else. Hair color, facial difference. Like, it changes.
Like hallucination?
In a way, yeah. Huh. Yeah, hallucination. Scary. I got to the point where it happened where if I was in the kitchen and I turned around too fast and Byington was behind me, it would look like a different man standing there. I'd jump back.
Wow.
It was so scary not recognizing the people that I grew up with or I knew. A little backstory. I told you my husband and I were high school sweethearts. We'd actually known each other our whole lives. Our parents were friends. He's a couple years older than me. He was in my house when I was born. Like he was, we've known each other our whole lives. So not to recognize him is just as bad as not to recognize my dad. It was very scary, very strange. I got to the point where I had learned to rely on my other senses. I learned what my husband's smell was very, very strongly. Like my dad's smell, the colognes, I had to, because I'd have to close my eyes and listen to their voice and take the smell.
So did you get to a point where you're like, okay, I know that I'm not seeing what I'm supposed to see.
Yeah.
But your brain wasn't believing like, who are you? I don't know you.
Yeah.
It was more of like, I know who you are, but you don't look like.
That's exactly what it was. Like,
Okay.
he would realize they would realize that I wasn't recognizing them, so they would start talking. And then my brain was having a fight with itself.
Wow.
I know this person, I know this sound, but I'm not seeing what's lining up with the sound.
Yeah.
So that was very hard to go through. Aphasia, I had really strong aphasia. So when I was trying to talk to people, I would just randomly say words that I had no idea I was even saying. So they'd start laughing because they thought I was just being silly, and they didn't realize that I had no idea what even just came out of my mouth.
Oh.
If it was a lot, then they knew something was wrong. But we'd be sitting here having a conversation, and suddenly we're talking and grill comes out of my mouth or stove comes out of my mouth, and
Like
it has
Tourette's?
nothing. Yeah, in a way. And I didn't even know I said it. Like, you heard it, but I didn't hear it. It was just a weird random word that I would say. The more stressed or anxious I was, the worse it was. Or I would be trying to say something and I couldn't figure out how to say it. I think the biggest thing they had to have patience with, including my kids. And at this time, they were, oh my goodness, when I had the car accident, they were 5, 7, and 9. If somebody was trying to talk to me, you had to repeat it 2 or 3 times. And I could repeat it back to you. I could literally repeat it, but I still had no idea what you were saying. So I'm like, change your words. Just edit how you're saying it for me. And that was the hardest thing, because trying to get kids, mommy, honey, mommy doesn't understand. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
My husband, if we were having conversations, even serious conversations, things that we needed to talk about, I would look at him so frustrated because I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying. And he'd have to edit his words for me. So this was like a huge struggle for me, because I felt so stupid and so worthless, and so this just isn't fair. Why is this happening? And then the medical side of me is like, there's got to be an answer. There's got to be a fix. There's got to be a solution.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down the rabbit holes with that. I couldn't be a paramedic. I couldn't be an EMT. So within months after the car accident, we lost where we were living. We lost one of the cars, because we were those average Americans that lived paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And when one of the paychecks are gone, half the income is gone. That's a shock to the family. Even if you do have a small savings, it's 6 months. It's like everything was lost. We ended up moving into my parents' basement. I had no idea what to do, because I couldn't be an EMT. I definitely couldn't be a paramedic. I'd forgotten half of what I had learned. And I didn't even know who I was, because I was drowning in this darkness, but then trying to also put on the smile and the persona of, if somebody asked me how I was, I'm great. I'm fine. Because 1, I didn't want their pity. 2, I didn't want to have to explain because they wouldn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always just a struggle for me.
Did you talk to doctors in the months afterwards, like asking what's wrong with me? How do we fix this?
Went through MRIs, and everything else, and they're like, "Oh, it's just a concussion. It should last 6 months to a year max." But I ended up with what's called post-traumatic brain injury. It's where the symptoms stayed. I eventually went to this amazing clinic called the Amen Clinic. Just like when you're praying and you say amen. He is, I heard him, actually my mother heard him on a PBS channel, and she shared him with me. It was very interesting. He's hilarious, actually. He's a psychiatrist that went down the road of understanding the brain. And they do something called SPEC scanning. It's a very unique type of scans, and way to look at the brain. It's very fascinating. I ended up going to one of their clinics and having it done with an EEG and a bunch of other tests that ran on the brain. And in the picture of a SPEC scan, you can see your brain in the 3D image type thing. And it can, in areas that's deflated or thin, it shows lack of blood flow, lack of oxygen, lack of just it shows lack of blood and lack of oxygen and damaged areas in the brain. And they were able to tell me that my neurotransmitters weren't connecting. So like we have walkie talkies all through the brain and trying to get to tower A, B, C, D. Mine was going A, K, M, N, S, back to B. Like,
Mm.
so I was getting lost in translation. I was getting lost in communication and understanding. So they were able to talk me into, they actually are huge on healing the brain with vitamins, with the hyperbaric chamber, things like that. It allows the body to heal itself. And it worked. It helped. It really did over time. But in those, at first, I was like, I can't afford this. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, because that's to a family that's living paycheck to paycheck to have a major injury like that. How are you going to pay for all that? That's like an added layer of stress and an added layer of dependence
Yeah.
on the Lord.
And if you the car accident really didn't give us much money, like a payout or anything, because you can't prove a concussion. You had a concussion, but how do you prove you continue to have symptoms without a physical proof? It's just your word. It's just what you say. Does that make sense? And I couldn't go to the Amen Clinic before it because I couldn't afford it,
Oh,
because you had to pay out of pocket for it.
mm-hmm.
So I was really angry at God through all this.
Yeah. What was your relationship like before the accident with God?
So I'd known God my whole life. My parents mainly were going to a Baptist church for most of my childhood, I could say, my teenage years and stuff. But I didn't have a good experience with church. The church I had grown up in had a lot of judgment. My parents had gotten a divorce when I was like 18, 17. I think about it was before I got pregnant, they had separated. And the church got very upset that my parents were going to separate, to the point where they treated us like outcasts because of the divorce.
Wow.
It was just one of those things. They had very strong judgment in there. But I grew up in the church. I helped in childcare. I helped in parking. I helped in events. I always was a helper, if that makes sense. I knew God, but I knew God outside of the church. God was this invisible friend I had growing up. Like, I knew somebody created us.
Mm-hmm.
I knew he was there, but I just thought he was somebody to talk to. So I was this little girl who, when life just got tough, when I couldn't stand it in my house, when I needed to get away, when the world got too heavy, I would go out in the fields and I'd lay there and I'd just look at the sky and talk to my imaginary friend. I knew he was up there. I talked to him.
I love that.
Just didn't know I was supposed to sit quietly enough to listen.
Right. He talks back.
I didn't know that as a kid. He showed up. God showed up through my childhood, through my teenage years, in miracles that I didn't understand in the moment, but I understand now. When I was going through the car accident, I got really mad and I got distant from the church. I got distant from God because I didn't understand it. And I thought I was being punished for something I didn't understand. I thought, okay, maybe this is because I was a teenage mom. Maybe this is because I'm not good enough being a wife or good enough wherever I'm supposed to be. Like, I think that was kind of how God was preached to me as a kid was, if you're not doing what you're supposed to, God's going to punish you.
Same.
The brimstone and fire type preaching.
Yeah. And that's so damaging to your faith.
It is.
Because you don't recognize God's work for what it is. It's shame filled.
Yes.
And there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus.
And you feel like you have to keep working for God's love. You have to keep showing up. You got to bend over backwards. You got to please God to get God to look at you or love you enough.
Yeah.
And so I when I was in the car accident, I was like, okay, I have pissed him off. I have upset him. I have done something, and this is my consequence for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of church. I didn't want to go back to church because of past church hurt, but I also didn't want to go back to church because I was shameful. I was like, okay, I did something wrong. He's mad at me, and I don't even know what I did. So maybe I need to figure it out first. I got into a conversation with somebody one day about church. I don't even know how it happened. And he's like, well, you should go check out this one church. And the funny thing is my neighbor was trying to talk me into going to this church. And I'm just like, I'm not ready to go back to church. Even if it's a different church, I just not ready. But there was something about this invitation. I went home and I told Byington about it. And I'm like, I don't know, but I feel like we're supposed to something's pulling me to go. We need to just maybe go check it out. And he's like, okay. So we got the kids up and we took them to this church. Um, it was a little church compared to what I was used to. I mean, we didn't grow up in mega churches, but it was a little church compared to what I was used to. And when I walked in, it didn't feel like they were putting on a show. It felt welcoming. It felt like they were excited. New people were here just to talk to them, not to get their tithe, not to get something from them. They were excited to help somebody find Jesus. And it was really cool. They had a great children's ministry, but I had my guard up at first. So we went and I mean, we worshiped and it was a different type of worship. The Baptist church had worship too, but I don't know, the way this group connected with worship, I never really understood worship. I can say that. I just thought it was music people played to get people to come into the sanctuary. I didn't realize the meaning of worship when I was younger. And this pastor was talking about the meaning of worship and what it meant. And hearing him talk about it and then thinking about it all that week, I went back. And we went back the next week and I was listening and I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, I can understand the words. Okay, that's what the words mean. And it hit me different that week. So my guard was still up. And he was talking about carrying unforgiveness. And he was talking about how we need to let things go. Well, that made me think again another week. And so we went back and my husband couldn't go with us this week because he had to work. And I still was like, no, I'm gonna go. I don't know why I'm going, but I'm gonna go. And they did a worship. And I remember in that moment, he was talking through the worship and he goes, it's time to surrender. Whoever's holding something, whoever's bound more than they understand, whoever feels like they have chains pulling them down, it's time to surrender. And he was singing and they went into a deeper worship. And I remember in that moment, it was almost like God came down and put his hand on me and he whispered, you are mine and it's going to be okay. And I remember losing it and just crying and just bawling and sobs wrecked me. It was like I actually felt a release that I had been holding on to that I didn't realize I was holding.
Wow.
And God met me right there in that moment. And then from that point on, it was like a slow growth of, okay, God, we'll see what you're going to do with this. Like I wanted to trust him, but I didn't trust him because I had been hurt so many times. I was comparing what the world had done to me and not trusting what God had for me, right? We don't always understand that God loves us more than we can ever imagine. We can't even comprehend the love that he has for us. But when the world doesn't show you that, it's hard to understand it.
Yeah. Because the world doesn't give you unconditional love.
No, it doesn't. It compares you. It tears you down. It makes you question everything. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's love there in the world.
Yeah.
But not his kind.
Right.
Not his kind. And and you have to understand that it's just a whole different type. So I started, okay. So I asked the pastor, I went into the church that week and asked the pastor if he had a Bible I could have. And he gave me a Bible. And it was the first time I actually started reading. I mean, we've had Bibles in my house. I've seen Bibles at the church. I never saw anybody ever read it. So I didn't.
You're like, how old are you at this time?
Oh, so I would have been, you're making me do math.
I was trying to do it in my head, but I couldn't.
I would have been about, oh my goodness, 25. I would have been about 25 when I really met Jesus, like met him had him meet me where I was and understood that he was there, right?
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I'll get this Bible. I'll read it. I'll try it. So I remember in the beginning of this Bible, it was like a study Bible, and it taught you different things, and you had to take the verses and go look them up and try to figure out where they were, and it was a story. And that's where my journey kind of really started with, and then asking questions. But Pastor Tim was amazing. His wife was amazing. I could ask all kinds of questions. When we were attending this church, Byington and I was invited to a small group. We didn't know what a small group was. And they told us it's just like a study, just to learn things. And I can't remember the name of the study now, but it was a really good one. It was a video study where you watched it and then answered questions. And it was about a gentleman who had had a heart attack. And he had a good life. He was in the corporate world. They made good money. He knew of God, but didn't invest time with God because he just didn't have time, because he had to work to make his lifestyle. Well, he had had a heart attack, and it was a come to Jesus moment for him. And he decided, when he got out of the hospital, he had a conversation with his wife that he can't live this life anymore. Like, he needs to live a more aligned life with God than with the way he was living. So they sold their house and went to a smaller house. He sold all his clothes. He's like, I only need one suit. Everything else can go. I'll wash my suit. I want leave my pants and shirts. So he ended up being a manager of a hot kitchen type thing where they fed the homeless and stuff. His wife was not happy about this. She did not want to give up her materialistic things. But he's like, no, we can't hold on to these materialistic things and walk with God. It doesn't go hand in hand. So it was a really long, so to drag the story out, I don't mean to. It was eye-opening because I realized that we were being very materialistic in a way. Even though we didn't have a lot of money, I thought we needed this or I thought we needed that. And I realized that we were living a life where we were reliant on ourselves and not being reliant on God. And I didn't know who I was. And I kept asking God, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? How am I supposed to do anything? I worked hard to be a paramedic and you took it away from me. Now what am I supposed to do? So I was back and forth with God because I didn't know who I was. Like, if I don't know what I'm supposed to do, how am I supposed to know who I am or how to be anything in this world? God called me just to be a mom in that moment. I need to just be a mom. So Byington went to work and I was a stay-at-home mom for a little bit. I taught CPR classes and stuff on the side because I still retained that kind of knowledge. But we were just in a part of life where it didn't feel right. And we asked God, okay, something's got to change. Something's got to change. Byington hated his job. So we put his resume out and we didn't hear anything. We lived in the tri-state area of West Virginia, Maryland, and Virginia. If you stood in Harper's Ferry, you could throw a rock on the other side of the river and it would land in one of the states. He couldn't get a job. He couldn't find a job anywhere. And it was so strange. And we didn't understand what the blocking was. So we're like, God, we don't know. So we threw it up on Indeed. Well, we didn't understand that when you throw it up on Indeed, it really throws it all over the United States. Still didn't get any really calls, except all of a sudden we started getting 6 calls from Florida. That were interested in him. And we were just like, Florida, we've never even been to that state. I mean,
We take everybody.
yeah. We're like, what's it like down there?
Little cray cray.
So we were like, okay, we left the kids with their grandparents and we flew down to Florida and we're like, well, let's just go do the interviews and let's see what options we have. We were very unsure of it. And we didn't have a lot of money. So we decided that we were going to come to Florida in a camper. And this was like one of those things like, God, if you want us, then you better make a way. So our journey to Florida is actually where God really transformed me and transformed my family in a way that saved us. My marriage got stronger And I thought we were going to lose our marriage. I wasn't sure we were going to make it after paramedic school, to be honest. But the car accident brought us closer together because I had to rely on him. He had to be there. He was amazing in the aspects that he had so much patience for me in those times when I was not sure and freaking out and scared. And I think looking back, that's probably what saved our marriage because I needed him. I, I was lost. Okay, so you remember how I said that I grew up in a small town, Hallmark town. So if you've ever seen a Hallmark movie, they're small towns.
Yeah, my husband, his sister lives in a Hallmark town. It's the cutest thing.
With the car accident, I grew up in these towns. After the car accident, I'd be driving back from somewhere with the kids, and all of a sudden, I wouldn't know where I was. I wouldn't know the street I was on. I wouldn't know how to get home. When I tell you that I had panic attacks, I would pull over and start bawling because we didn't have GPS. Like, that's just when the phones really started to do anything, and we had flip phones. Or do you remember the slide phones with the keyboards?
Yeah.
Like, we had those.
Those were so cool.
but they weren't the phones we have today with the GPSs and everything.
Right. We had a GPS that you mounted on your dash and plugged into your car light.
I never got one of those, though. I probably should have. But I would call Byington or I'd call my dad and I'd be bawling, crying. I don't know where I am and I don't know how to get home. And they'd be like, where are you? What, look up and tell me what's around you. And I'd say a gas station or something. And they're like, Amanda, you're half a mile from home. You're going to turn right at the gas station and you're going to go straight and you'll see the house on your left. Wow. So the reliance that I had on Byington, because I just didn't know. I was so scared all the time. We had one Walmart in our area and one Walmart town over. And I remember coming out of a Walmart one time with the kids, and I absolutely had no idea where we were. I knew we were at a Walmart, but I didn't know what city we were in or town we were in. I didn't even know where the car was. My brain would glitch, and I would be completely lost. I remember Byington had bought me a Hallmark necklace. It was just one of those cheap little necklaces from Walmart. I lost it in the move, but I loved it. It was a round pendant, and it had the Serenity Prayer on it. I couldn't tell you how many times I grabbed that thing and would sit there and pray it over and over and over again. And I'm like, God, I need you right now. So through the trial with the brain injury, God built me in Byington very strong, and we had a lot to overcome. We were a young couple with many mistakes, but lots of grace. We were very imperfect, but God came in, and He's like, no, I put you together for a reason, and this is how it's going to work. So when we went to Florida, we went what we joke now in a metal tent. It was an old camper. It was an old Jayco. It had a bunkhouse in the front and a bedroom in the back, but the AC didn't work. In Florida, the AC didn't work.
You are brave. We have hurricanes here.
The stove didn't work. The bathroom didn't work.
Oh my God. But it's literally a shell.
It was a metal tent, literally.
Wow.
So, but they had a great bathhouse at the campground, and we got one of those portable AC units like you can get for a house, and we put it in the window unit to cool the camper off. We moved down here in August of 2017. No, I didn't understand that was hurricane season. I was a mountain girl.
The hottest month of the year.
I was a mountain girl. Like in my area, it was starting to cool off.
You don't know sacrifice till you come to Florida in August.
Well,
no AC.
This also happened. Okay, we moved down here August 17th. Okay.
It's my birthday.
Is it?
Yeah.
Weeks before Irma hit.
Oh.
We'd never experienced a hurricane in our life. So we were like, well, we can't stay in the camper with the kids. So we I was like, we're going to have to find a hotel. And I'm thinking, okay, if we can just get on a power grid of either the airport or the hospital, I know we'll have power quickly because they have to put their power up. So we ended up going down near MCO and got a hotel down there, which was fine. The hurricane hit. When we got back to the house, we got back to see if the camper was okay. Some of the campers were flipped over. Some of them had trees down on them. When we got back, a pine tree literally fell right beside the camper. I mean, you couldn't even open the front door because it was right there. It didn't hit the camper though.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, so God blessed us in this aspect because we were able to stay in the camper a little bit longer. And we stayed in Florida, but it was an interesting time. So we weren't sure what church to go to. And we were praying to God, God, what kind of church do you want us in? Where do you want us? We had to take our laundry into the laundromat in Sanford to wash it. I had gone in and I went to put the car in park and the transmission wire broke. So I heard it click. So I couldn't shift the transmission anymore. I didn't know anybody. We didn't know anybody in Florida. And Byington was at work. So I'm like, I called him and I said, hey, this just happened. I can't make it go in reverse. I can't make it go in drive. And I'm like, we're going to have to walk around Sanford till you get off. So we walk around Sanford. There's a reason this story. Walking around Sanford. And I was like, well, the kids can use the bathroom at the library and I'll just let them play at the park. Like, it'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll figure it out. We were at the park and we met this single mom with her kid. They were awesome. The kids just clicked, started playing. The little boy comes up and goes, my mom's over there if you want to go talk to her.
Aww.
So, of course, I walk over and I'm talking to her and we just click right off the bat. We just click. And I was telling her about just moving down here and everything. And she's like, you should come check out our church. Well, the little boy hears us talking and he goes, yeah, our church is awesome. And I'm like, it is. He goes, yeah, they brought us fresh pancakes. Apparently they had gone to the community and they were making fresh pancakes for everybody.
Wow.
And the little boy's like, you know, the best part? It has warm syrup. Like he was so excited about this warm syrup. But they were telling us about this church that had an outreach and it was phenomenal. And I'm like, okay. They're like, well, they're doing a block party. You should go check it out on Saturday. So of course, Byington was working, so he couldn't go that day. So I took the kids. I'm like, let's go try it. So I remember pulling up and I'm like, we're just going to drive past it. We're going to drive past it and see what we think, guys. So I remember driving past this church and like going, okay, let's stop in and see what we think. They were just closing up, but I met one of the security guys and he was really, really friendly and he introduced us to the pastor. And I mean, when I tell you that this was really a walk with God, this church was stepping stone, right? They were a phenomenal church that really broke walls and broke chains that we still had that we didn't realize. And it's funny how when we're going through this, when God gets a hold of us, it's not always an overnight change.
No.
It's this stepping process of, okay, you got to break this off. You got to release this. You got to let this go.
One thing at a time.
One of the biggest things, I went to a women's small group there and it was a book called Being a Mary in a Martha World.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes. So I'm reading it and you're supposed to really stop and take time, like really read it and think about it. Right. And I wasn't. I still had this thing where I needed a 5-year plan. I used to joke about it, but I didn't realize now looking back, it was an issue. I need a 5-year plan. God, can you just tell me what's going to happen? I'll walk it. I will. That's probably a lie. If we know the things we have to walk through, we're going to turn around and go back because we're like, no, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I always joke that just give me a 5-year plan. I'll walk it. I just need to know what you're asking me to do, God. And this book, I'm reading it and it's like, you know, you're a Martha when you can't sit still and even read this book. I was sitting there cooking dinner, reading the book. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going to put the book down now. It really brought that light out. That was a stepping stone for me of realizing, I need to trust God more and I need to stop being so busy and start learning to be still and just trust him. And as the kids are getting older, I'm trying to teach them this. And you know, I really do understand why Jesus taught in parables because sometimes you need a story or an example for people to understand, especially when you're dealing with kids or teenage kids. And we were talking about trusting God and, you know, sometimes the things God's asking us to do, we look at and we're like, that's going to fail. I'm not going to do that. Are you sure? Like, God, seriously. Like, how's this going to play out?
Like starting a podcast.
moving to Florida in a metal tent with kids in the hottest part of the year with no AC in hurricane season. Like,
What?
sure. Okay. Okay, God. So I told the kids there's these movies. I use two of them as a reference. One's a cartoon. It's a movie called Upward. Okay. And the other one is, most people know it's an Indiana Jones movie. In both movies, there is this example of trust. Okay. And in both movies, the characters have to walk across a cliff. There's a cliff, and then there is this open space, and it looks like you're going to fall thousands of feet. But if you step out, there's an invisible stone there. You just don't see it until you step out in it, right?
Yeah.
So God is very much like that. He's like, I know you're at the point of the cliff here. I know you're there, but I'm trying to get you to the other side, but you have to trust me to get there. So he has these stepping stones that we have to walk on, this invisible path we have to walk on. But if all we're doing is concentrating on the fall, we're not trusting in what he has for us. It's like Peter telling Jesus when they were on the boat in the storm, if it's really you, call me out onto the water. And he had the faith to step out into the water, but he allowed the things around him to distract him, and he fell through the water, right? That is every journey we have. When God calls us out to something, are we going to worry about the distractions, or are we going to trust in who's calling us to step?
Hey, real quick, we're going to pause here for a second. If what you've been hearing today is hitting close to home, I want you to know that your story matters too. Holy Wreckage is looking for guests who are ready to share their testimony. The real one, not the cleaned up version. The one that still has scars on it. If that's you, head to holywreckage.com or send me an email at crystal@holywreckage.com. Now let's get back into it.
The reason I say that is that that church taught me that. But then there came a point where the Holy Spirit called us to another church, not because that church was bad. There was no reason for it really. But my kids were invited to a youth group, and then we ended up meeting this other pastor, and there was something in the alignment of what God was trying to teach me that pulled us to this other church. And it's neat how, sometimes when God calls us to learn something, we can sit here and go, I don't know. I don't think that's right. I don't feel comfortable. It's new. Well, what if? But God. But God. Instead of saying, but God, we should be saying, even if. Even if I fail, even if this is strange, even if this is uncomfortable, I'm going to trust you through it because you're telling me to go out in it. So this move to Florida was very, very unique. So we started out in a metal tent. I'd call it a metal tent, a basic camper. And then my dad had bought a camper down here, and he let us use it temporarily. It was a fifth wheel, much better upgrade. It had a shower and a bathroom that worked. Awesome. So, and it had a kitchen that worked. But so we used that for a little bit while we were trying to figure it out, because we still weren't sure about staying in Florida, and we weren't sure what our next steps were. And I still didn't know who I was. I still didn't understand what God was calling me out to do. I mean, I was smart. I was intelligent. I had a degree. I get it. I was a high school dropout, but I worked hard for my GED. I went back to school. And even then, I was the street smart kid. I could pick up things and learn things. But I was being a housekeeper. I was cleaning the campground at this time because it kept me close to my kids, and it allowed us to have a rent discount. And I didn't even know what else to do at this point.
But you're made for more than that.
Yeah. And I just didn't understand what God was calling me to do. So I'm like, God, I don't understand this. And the youth pastor at one of the churches that we went to, he came up to me out of nowhere one day. He goes, I've got a question for you. He goes, would you be, and I have this experience my wife and I had done, and they're looking for a new couple to do it. Would you be interested? It was called Apartment Life. And what it is we go to an apartment community, and we do events, and we get to talk to people and evangelize inside the communities pretty much. And I'm like, I don't know about that. That's kind of outside my zone. Like, what am I supposed to do? I barely read the Bible. I mean, I read the Bible, I do Bible studies, but
I can't repeat it. Like, I can't memorize it. And
yeah, you want me to go evangelize? Like, that's kind of outside my comfort zone and definitely outside my husband's. My husband is introverted through and through. Do not ask him to go talk to a stranger. So when we got talking about it, and it wouldn't leave us alone. It wouldn't leave us alone. The thought was there. The conversation was there. Things kept coming back to it. So we were like, okay, let's at least have a conversation about it. It was during COVID. So that made it worse. But we had a conversation about it and we actually decided to go with it. So we went from the camper into the apartment. And
like, do you live on site?
yeah,
Okay.
we got an apartment to live on site. And we ran 2 events a month. And then we would pretty much go around and just kind of check on the neighbors, but then welcome new people moving in and giving them kind of like new gifts. We had a budget to work with to do this from the community. The apartment complex would give us a budget to be able to do different
I've lived
things.
in a lot of apartments and ain't none of them had nothing like that.
It's not a lot, but they do have it. And it was kind of like an upgrade. Metal tent, camper, apartment. Okay,
Yeah.
God. But it gave me something to do. And I still did some stuff with CPR on the side for my dad because he had a safety business and I was kind of helping him with graphic designs on websites and stuff that he needed help with because I mean, I could do it at home and I knew how to do it and it wasn't overwhelming. But I still felt like, okay, God, I have absolutely no idea where you're leading me with this. I still feel lost. I think in a way I kind of rubbed that off on my kids. They saw my insecurities and then they started to have insecurities. And they were very confident kids when they were little. Like they were little. I loved my kids. I'm blessed by my kids. I really am. It is all by God. But when they were teenagers, I could see my middle daughter was really the one that struggled with identity too. Feeling like she's enough, measuring up. She was because my kids were homeschooled, they were in between still being a kid and wanting to hang out with kids their age. And the difference, in my opinion, is that they grow up really fast in school. Public schools, your kids grow up really fast. They're trying to compare it to the next kid or the older kids. And then they don't want to show a weakness of being kid, like playing games or playing with dolls or whatever it is, playing imaginary games. So Maddie I think she started to have some bullying issues about 10 or 11. She would play with kids and play with dolls and play imaginary games. But then, the kids that are 11 or 12, they were cool kids and she got bullied a lot. So when we were going to one of the churches, we ended up seeing they did summer camps where the kids actually went somewhere for a week. I never experienced that in any of the churches we did. I mean, we had BBS, but never do kids get on a bus and actually go somewhere for a week or a weekend. It was very cool. In that experience, Maddie wouldn't go unless I went. She was scared to death to go. So I'm like, it's okay. I'll go. I'll volunteer. I'll be around. Okay. You got to trust me. I'll be around, but you'll be fine. I decided to work in the kitchen and help with all that kind of stuff. I remember her coming to me one of the days, bawling, crying, showing up the kitchen door because they were supposed to have they had group sessions and that was great. That was fine. She did great in those. But then when they didn't have something scheduled, you were just supposed to go hang out with kids. Well, nobody wanted to hang out with her. And she didn't know what to say. Like she'd kind of be there, but everybody'd be talking and she'd just be that girl on the outside. And I remember in that moment watching her, and I'm like, Maddie, you are you. You're not meant to always blend in with everybody. Sometimes we stand out because we're different. And I realized that maybe she had seen that from me and that struggle with me and finding my identity, that she was having a struggle with her own identity. Or, I mean, I think we all have problems with identity. I think we all question who we are, who we belong with, like what clique or group can we join in.
Especially that age, for sure.
Yeah. And coming out of it, I realized, okay, I need to do something to help her. And in the in the midst of it, I was helping myself. We started a small group that we named "This Is Me."
Like you and her started it?
Through the church. Yeah,
Okay.
we started a youth small group, and we named it "This Is Me." And before each one, we started with like a song. It could have been a secular song that was really good for talking about identity, but then adding in a worship song. We talked about who we are and who we are in Christ, and what the difference is of the world measuring to the world versus measuring to the God who created us.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to see what those words meant and how they were spoken into children and how they were spoken into teenage girls and how much they needed it. Um, and then I started, okay, maybe this is my calling. Maybe my calling is to help other people find their identity, and I'll find my own along the way. And that's kind of how it started.
Funny how God tells you to do something and you don't even know how to do it. And like you need to help other people do that thing when you don't know how to do it yourself.
I think that most of the people that are in their callings, that are truly walking in what God's calling them to do, it's their own personal struggle.
Yeah.
And that's the reason they can relate to people so well, and the reason they fight so hard for that person, because it's like they're fighting for themselves in the midst of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started working on it, and I started seeing her get better at it. And then she started to go outside our small group. So my kids are video gamers, like most kids today. And I can hear them in the games. Like, they encourage kids, and they start little groups in these discords, and they pour into other kids. And then she'll come back to me and go, "Mom, this girl's struggling with this and she's doing this. I don't know how to help her." And I'm able to feed into Maddie, and then Maddie's able to feed into others. And it's this ripple effect that's really cool to watch and see. So I started leaning more into this. I'm like, okay, God, I don't know where you're leading me, but I love this, and I'm gonna lean into this. And then I had this thought that, oh, you should write a book. And I'm like, no, no,
Completely not.
no, I'm dyslexic. I am a high school dropout. I hated English. I hated it. Why would that thought even cross my mind? And then it wouldn't go away. And then the name of the book came, and then the titles came, and then the chapters came. I'm like, God, this isn't funny. I don't want to do this. And then I would sit down to do it, and it would happen so fast, and it would come together so fast. I'm like, maybe I am supposed to do this. And then I'd be in a season where I have no idea what I'm supposed to write next. Maybe this is a lie. Maybe I'm not supposed to do this. And it would be like this back and forth tug of war of it. But then I realized through every chapter I wrote, I personally had to learn something. I had to not always learn something. It might have been a lesson I already learned, but I had to recognize it. I had to look back on
putting
it.
things on paper that bring it to life for you.
Yeah.
And bring it into full perspective.
And you have to go, oh, wow. Okay. But do I want the world to know that? Wait.
I wrestled with that a lot before doing this podcast. Of like, I don't know if I'm ready for the world. Like, I want the world to know what you've done, but what are they going to think of me?
Yep. And what happens if I get negative feedback? There's always that person who laughs at you or tells you that's stupid or that's not. Why are you wasting your time? Nobody wants to hear that. There's always those voices. And it's like, do I want to face those voices? And it's funny. You sit here when you sit here and you question God and you go, God, are you serious? Like, do you want this? And then he throws all the confirmation back at you. And you're like, I'm not listening to this. This was a struggle for several months. So I leaned more into it. And then a friend of mine told me about the place we work and introduced me to it. And I came from a secular world into a Christian one. And that threw me hard for several months. I didn't know how to take the company at first. I didn't know how to take the coworkers I worked with. Like, they were nice and they prayed for you. There was no backstabbing or whispering or gossip, or it was a different place. And I realized I think part of the reason God pulled me there was because he was showing me I still had so many walls up. So many walls because of so much past hurt that I needed to release some of this to step into who I'm made to be. God will put us through the fire sometimes, not to hurt us, but to forge us.
Right.
We're weak at first. And the more he teaches us, the more we grow, the more he works with us, the stronger we get. But if we're not willing to allow him to come in and do that work on us, then we're going to stay stagnant. Mm-hmm. And that's not the life we're called for. God doesn't want us to be stagnant. God doesn't want us to sit still and sit in our hurt and be in a place of unknown. He wants us in peace and love. But sometimes he has to take us through the fire to burn off the things that are not good for us anymore, the impurities in us. So the whole journey that I've been on, it's for me, and I realize that, but I get to help people along the way because of what I've been taught, and I think that's pretty cool. We live in a world that is under constant comparison. We live in a world of are we good enough? Because the world says we're not measuring up. We don't look like that. We don't live like that. It's like the saying, keeping up with the Joneses. Mm-hmm. Who are we keeping up with?
That's
Why?
Exhausted. I can't.
It is. And then it's just not good for us. And I see all these, one thing about social media, you see a lot of different like memes and stuff. I see a lot of these memes with the sheep going one way and the black sheep going the other, right? And I always feel like that black sheep. It's like I never fit in. No matter what I do, it doesn't work. But I don't think I'm meant to. I don't think I'm supposed to, because I don't think all those other people fit in either. I think they pretend to fit in. I think most of them struggle with something. Most of them struggle with just, I'm not enough. I got to measure up. I have to pretend. I have to keep going to keep up with everybody. So it's almost like I got to keep going to keep up with everybody. And that's why they're in this group going this way. Mm-hmm. But they don't even know where they're going. They're just following each other.
If it looks good, if my life looks good on the outside, it must be good.
Or let me pretend it is so I can have friends who I think I need because the world tells me I need to do this. There's so many things that I want to teach my children so they don't go through the struggle I had. One of the things that they're going through as young adults right now is friends and building tribes and understanding that not everybody's your friend. Yeah. Like I joke, you have to have 3 rings of people, right? You have your acquaintances, you have your friends, and then you have your best friends. And it's okay if your best friends are only 1 to 3 people. It's okay if you don't have very many. And when you're young, you really won't, because I had a best friend growing up. She's still my best friend. She lives in West Virginia. But even through our life, we had different seasons where we were really close and we weren't, but we always came back really close. Our friends kind of change through these circles. And sometimes we try to promote people to best friend before they ever deserve it. Yeah. We want them to be our best friend, and we trust them, and we give more than we should to them. Building a tribe and having people around you, I tell my kids all the time, you are who you're around. So let me ask you this. What personality of your friends do you like that's going to show in you? Do they pray for you? Do they go to church? Do they know God? Or are they partying? Are they doing drugs? Are they doing things they shouldn't be doing? You have to look at that, because who you are around is who you will be. Yep. They will pull you into that world, even if you don't mean to, because you allow it to happen. Mm-hmm. It's part of our identity. It's part of guarding ourselves and knowing who we are and knowing our values.
I think that's an important lesson that we need to learn young, because even with a servant heart and wanting to help
Hmm.
everybody, you can become attached to somebody trying to help them,
Yeah.
and they bring you down
Yeah.
in their wreckage.
Um, and then it's also recognizing that there's a problem and being afraid to say it to them
Yeah,
because you don't want to hurt their feelings. So you will stay close and you stay in that environment that's hurting you and pulling you down because you don't want to hurt them.
right.
And
A true friend is going to show you or try to tell you, this is not right. This is, and not with condemnation, but
yeah,
with love. There's
yes,
a way that it is done biblically, and
yeah,
it's not shaming, not pointing the finger,
not
s-
publicly.
and not publicly.
Yeah,
Yeah, in private with love. And even sometimes that doesn't work,
yeah,
and that's when okay, maybe we aren't friends.
yeah. It's amazing how much we have to think about when it comes to our identity and who we are and how we build ourselves and what is involved in that. But looking back after that car accident, God changed me from that person. I didn't realize how far away from God I was. Um, there is a new song that recently came out by Phil Wickham, Running to the Runaway. Have you heard that one?
I don't think that I have.
Okay. It resonates with me because I feel like at that time I was a runaway. I was full of shame. I was not sure how to how to have a relationship with God, and in a way I was that prodigal child, but more from shame and just not knowing what a relationship with God is like, not understanding that I was a daughter of the High King, and what that means. I just thought God created us. I didn't think he called us his own. I didn't think that there was there was an importance in the identity in how he called us his.
Mm,
So that was a lesson that I had to learn through my years of after the car accident, moving to Florida and trusting in God along the way. Cause there was a lot of situations where I was like, I don't know how you're going to do this, but you caught us here. So can you please make a way?
just the
And
act of
trusting in it.
trusting him and then him coming through is a faith builder.
Yes.
But even if he doesn't come through, he's still enough.
And sometimes he doesn't come through because there's something we have to learn in that. And
Right.
it's our way. It's what we want him to do. That doesn't mean it's what God is asking us to do.
Right.
It's not, it's his will. But the thing is when you understand that when you are in God's will, when you're doing something that God's calling you to do and you're walking in his will, it's going to turn out fine.
Exactly.
You just have to trust the process.
Right.
And you can't ask God for the 5-year plan. It's not going to
He
work.
ain't gonna give it to you.
So yeah, that's pretty much been my journey. So I'm in the middle of writing the book. I did get TBN. They decided to publish it. So I just have to finish it.
That's amazing.
But I do see now that part of my calling is to help other people find their identity, especially young girls.
Yeah.
It's been a real movement. My daughter's starting a new small group next Friday, and she's like, "Will you help me do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." But this is a Discord group actually. So these kids are from all over the United States that she plays with or has met with online, and they really are struggling, and they and my daughter's like, "Hey, do you want to do a small group?" And some of them don't even know what a small group is. So it's going to be like the first time and the first ability to talk to them about Jesus, which is
Wow.
really exciting. But it comes back to the identity. So if I didn't struggle with my own identity, I don't know how well I would have been able to help them today.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be able to write the book I'm writing today.
Yeah.
Um, so I look back and I was mad at God for allowing this to happen, but now I see I had to go through it to get where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't have happened any other way. Well, maybe God can do all things, but everything I went through, every struggle, every tear, it was all for a purpose, and he never let me down. He showed up every time, even when I didn't see it in the moment. Um, and I thank God for that. To this day, there's not a day I want without him. I might have thought that when I was younger. Like, I might have thought, I don't need God. He's not helping me. Now, yeah, I- I'd give up everything as long as he's there.
Amen.
Not even a doubt in my mind.
Amen.
Because I know he's done it before. I know he'll do it again. And that's not a question. So when you're fully, when you allow God to be the foundation of your life and everything starts with him, everything will finish with him.
Yeah.
And you just have to trust that. But you can't go, okay, God, I'll give you this part, but I need to hold this part because I'm just not sure.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you just have to go, okay, I surrender all.
Absolutely.
And then when you do, you start finding out just how valuable you are in God.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been my journey so far.
That's an amazing testimony. I'm seeing sort of from the outside looking in, I feel like that journey of you being a stay-at-home mom was really important
Yeah.
to be able to pour into your kids so that now they can do what they're doing.
Yeah.
To pour into other people. Because had you not been there, they may be struggling now with their own fears of abandonment or rejection or whatever, if mom wasn't around, but you were.
I was, yeah.
You were. And your story is so beautiful, and I'm so thankful that you were brave to share it. I know this is like your first public expression of God's glory in your life, but I pray that your book goes on to help millions of other people. Are you able to share the title of it yet or no?
So the title of the book is going to be I Am Who I Am in the Great I Am.
I love that.
And you know what? Somebody once said, well, it's probably going to make lots of copies. I'm like, I don't really care about how many copies it makes. When I think about the book, I see a woman in the corner in her chair, curled up with a blanket, reading the book. I see a small group of women talking about their identity and the struggles they've had and encouraging and praying over each other and building each other up. I see a mom just like me who's going through it and going, I don't know how to do this. And that's what this book's for. It's for all those little individuals. I hope it does. I hope it goes to a lot of people. But I hope it goes to the right people. I hope that the Holy Spirit moves in it and that it helps people see who they are. In the book, I'm very real. There are stories in each chapter about things that I faced in my life. And that was one of the struggles with the book was, do I really want people to see all this? But I realized that we don't talk enough about our problems, that we hide them. And then other people keep quiet because they think they're the only ones going through it.
This is exactly why Holy Wreckage was born. Because we don't talk about it enough. I went years thinking I was the problem.
Yeah.
When in actuality, so many other people have had the same struggles or something similar.
Yeah.
And if we just talk about it, we can find support.
Yeah. You're not alone.
You are not alone. Just like you can Google anything on the internet, there's somebody out there that's been through what you've been through.
Yeah. It's like we fall down and can get in the mud and we're stuck there. And by sharing our testimonies, by sharing our stories, we're giving another woman a hand up. We're giving somebody else a hand up going, it's okay. Wipe it off. We've been there too. And I can tell you I'm standing and you can stand too. I've been in your shoes. This is not where you have to stay. You can be washed. You can be cleaned. You can get up and stand in authority of who you are with your head held high, understanding that you are a child of God. And that comes with authority. That comes with identity. And that comes with so much grace to know that everything you've been through has been for a reason and that it's washed now and that he's going to take all that hard and he's going to make it good somehow. But you got to trust him. And I just want women to know they're not alone. And I know no matter where they come from, what they look like, what their background is, they still have an identity, even if they don't see it yet.
Yeah.
And I want them to find it. And I want God to glorify through it. if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I love that you started this podcast because you're so right. And in today's world of digital media, this is going to reach people all over the world, not just the US. And they need to hear it. They need to hear my story. They need to hear everybody else's story that's going to come on here.
Yeah.
And the Holy Spirit's going to move. He's going to glorify it. He's going to come through this screen and he's going to help people in ways you can't even fathom. You can imagine what this is going to do, but I can tell you God's going to take it further and it's going to be amazing to see it happen.
Thank you.
That's what I want for my book too. And I know that when God's in the middle of something, it's going to be amazing.
Yep. And just like you, if this podcast doesn't reach 1 million people, that's fine. I'm trusting that it's going to reach the people that the Lord wants it to reach. If you want to share your story, reach out to me at crystal@holywreckage.com, or there's a form that you can fill out on our website that'll come straight to me at holywreckage.com. Share my testimony. I would love to hear from you. We've got plenty of room here for you. And just like Amanda and all those that have been before her, we're on the move. We're in a movement of sharing our stories and just talking about how far God has brought us from and how good he is, even in the midst of whatever it is that we're going through. So, Amanda, I am so thankful for you sharing your story today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And that's a wrap.
Thanks for being here for Holy Wreckage, where we tell the truth about pain, healing, and the God who still redeems the mess. If this episode hit home, don't just move on. Subscribe, like, and follow so you don't miss what's next. And share it with someone who needs hope. For more faith-based tools, support, and resources to help you walk through your own wreckage, visit holywreckage.com/resources. Until next time, remember this. Your story isn't too far gone for God. It's not too broken or too messy. He still restores, he still rebuilds, and he's not done yet.